Oh, hey, how's it going? I would say welcome to the library, but I'm not at my library. Also, if you're new, what's up? Whoa, I don't know what to do. Usually I have an entire catalog to point to when I make references, but right now I'm just, I have a bunch of books that aren't mine. Today we're talking about none other than one of the hottest on TikTok books, The Housemaid, and its potential plagiarism scandal. The fun fact about that is that I obviously do not have the book, The Last Miss Parrish, on hand. I actually looked in a couple places, but I couldn't find it, and I'm not buying from Amazon. So I did read two entire summaries from different sources about The Last Miss Parrish. So obviously take my opinion here with a little bit of a grain of salt. I haven't read the book, and also I don't know if this is plagiarized. Nobody really does. But from what I've seen, it's not sounding good for Frida McFadden. That's the author of The Housemaid, is Frida McFadden. Honestly, a cool name, but if they are a plagiarizer, it's not a cool name. Get out of here. Ew. Today we're gonna go over the summary, or my summary, of The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, and I'm also gonna intersperse my opinions on it, and also then, at some point in this video, I am going to dissect the comparisons between The Last Mrs. Parrish and The Housemaid, which there are a startling many comparisons you can make, but I'll give you a hint now. It's not entirely plagiarized. It's not entirely plagiarized. The structure seems a little plagiarized, but the actual characters and story beats seem less. But again, I haven't read the actual book, just a couple summaries, so always take my opinion with a grain of salt. Now, spoiler warning for the entirety of the Housemaid. You can stop the video at any time if you haven't read it and you want to, because maybe my opinion's a bunch of baloney and you actually think this book sounds amazing. And also an entire content warning for mostly just abuse. There isn't much else. There just overall abuse on the level of like relationships. We open the book meeting Millie. She's an ex-con, just got out of jail not too long ago and was fired from a job working at a bar. After getting fired from this job, she now can no longer live in her apartment and is living out of her car, which if you don't know is technically illegal and would send her back to jail if her parole officer was at all notified. But good news, she might be getting a job from Little Miss Nina Winchester, like the rifle. Yeah, that wasn't said in the book. Fun fact for you. She is interviewing for the position of a stay-in housemaid or house servant. I don't know what is the correct term. Somebody who's going to do all their chores because they can't be bothered to do it. She is interviewing with Nina and taking a tour through the house, which is otherwise uneventful except for the fact that it's entirely filled with millions and millions of dollars worth of decorations and a movie theater. But importantly, she is escorted up a rickety flight of stairs on the second floor, of which she thought there was only 2 floors. But at the top of these stairs, there is a very dark, dingy room of which she is going to stay in. That is... What, guys? This isn't a torture chamber. Ignore the piss bucket and the lock on the outside of the door. There's no way this is going to turn out to be a torture chamber. But of course, she gets this job, after a few days of fretting that her record is going to be found and that Nina is not going to hire her because she is a ex-con, and that can really affect your hiring status. But she gets the job because we have, a 300-page book here that has to have a plot, so she gets the job. I'll say that this book is extremely easy to read, like you can breeze through it really fast. If you just want to have an opinion on it like me, that's the type of reader I am. I read books simply so I can go out of my way to have an opinion. It's a pretty fast read. I did it in like a day and a half. I could have done it in one day, but I'm on vacation technically, so I wasn't really that motivated. After she gets the job, she moves in, and I'm gonna kind of breeze through this part of the book. But the first day she's there, it becomes really prevalent that she's gonna have a tough time. Nina can flip-flop between extremely abusively rude and destructive in her house to just really nice when it suits her. This will later have plot convenience down the line, so, just keep it in mind. She walks into the house after it being pristine a week before to it being a slob fest. Dishes everywhere, bags of trash strewn about, stains on everything. Something was spilled onto the pizza box, and then it cemented itself to the table, and she had to clean it off. I don't know. I thought that was a neat detail. If the rest of the book was written with that kind of detail and creativity, it would have been all right. Fun fact, the book wasn't that great. I'll get down to it later, but you've already kind of seen a little bit of it of me going like, oh, I wonder if that's going to be a torture chamber. Even that next morning after she stays her first night in this house, she wakes up to a ruckus of Nina literally tearing their kitchen apart. Pots out of the cupboard, food on the ground. She's digging in the fridge when she finds her, and the first thing Nina says is, And she's accusing Millie of taking her PTA notes and throwing them somewhere. And Millie's like, oh, hell no, I didn't do that, but I need this job, so I'll take the blame. And this happens a lot. Sometimes, for instance, Nina will give her a bunch of dresses and then later down the line go, hey, you stole those from me. And she didn't. This happens a bunch of times. More importantly, one of them that gives you a lot of exposition. Nina calls Millie in like a frenzy. She's like, you need to pick up my daughter, Cecilia, who's kind of important to the story, more or less. She's mostly just like an anchor, if that makes any sense for people who've read it. Nina calls her. She's like, hey, Millie, you need to go pick up my daughter from school. I'm not going to be able to make it there in time. Go find her. She finds a bunch of information about the school so that she can actually go pick her up because she's never done it before. And when she gets there, she learns that Cecilia was going to go to karate practice that day and that she didn't actually need to be picked up at all. So Nina lied to her again. But while there, she learns a very important piece of information. And it's that Nina allegedly, like rumors about the neighborhood, is that she was taken to a mental institution, of which she absolutely was. That's not a rumor. She did get taken to one for allegedly trying to drown Cecilia in a bathtub and had drugged her. Yikes. It's a mess. But she learns this so that she can then become even more wary of Nina down the line. And it's a slightly believable plot device. I don't hate it that much. But that's the problem with this book. I think a lot of it is just so mid. The book's pretty mid. It's unoffensive for a thriller. Hey man, you're not gonna thrill somebody by being like, and then it was what it was. Crazy. Like throughout the book, for instance, a lot of these confrontations end with Andrew, important character, the husband showing up, like for instance, while she was tearing apart the kitchen in a frenzy, yelling at Millie. Andrew comes down the stairs and he's like, yo, what's going on, girls? What's up? And then always takes Millie's side instead of his wife's. Wonder if that's a problem. I wonder. That's crazy. Wonder if he's a little freaky weird guy. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'll say from the beginning his character was introduced, I was like, yeah, this guy's a freak. Don't like him one bit. And whether I'm right or not, you'll just have to find out. So we go through this cat and mouse thing a bunch, you know. Millie's the maid. She has to agree to whatever Nina says of her. And one day, Nina and Andrew come back from a fertility specialist who lets them know that Nina is not going to be having a kid for the rest of her life, probably. She is infertile and is not going to be bearing Andrew's young. And this just ruins everything for them. Andrew, and this is like his first character development moment, he's like just stricken with it. He's just, this is the end. I have nothing left to live for, kind of. Like, he doesn't say that, but that's what it feels like. But he says to Millie that she needs to buy Nina some tickets to a Broadway show so that Andrew can make it up to Millie. So Millie asked her, she's like, what date can I send you off to do this so that I can have the house to myself for a couple days? So Nina tells her the date. She sets it up. And that day, when it comes about, Nina's like, hey, what the hell, man? I told you to do it a week from now, which she didn't do. But that same night, Nina is going to take Cece to her daughter to summer camp. So that means she's going to be out for like a day and a half because it's so far away. She's going to stay the night while she's out. That Andrew's like, hey, man, Nina wants me to make you pay for these tickets because you fucked up so bad. But you know what I'm going to do for you? I'm going to go with you to this Broadway show because that makes so much sense. So much sense. Yeah, I wonder if this guy's a freak. Yeah, my wife's like really upset she doesn't get to go to this Broadway show, but like, fuck that, dude. I want to go with this young, probably can bear young person because I'm just so stricken with sadness that I'm gonna take my housemate out on a date while my wife's out of town. Makes sense to me. While they're out there, they go to the Broadway show, they go to dinner, they go to a hotel room because they're drunk and they can't drive home, and then they sleep together. Yay! Who could have seen it coming? And you might be thinking, you know, like that makes Millie a homewrecker, and she's like extremely terrible for this. I never got that, man. Like, yeah, she's in the wrong a little bit for doing this, but what do you mean? Like, Andrew's the bad guy here, through and through. What did he do that for? Like, that's ridiculous. Come on, man. Let's just zoom forward through the story. I hate this part, by the way. One day in the morning, it's very evident that Nina knows exactly what happened. She knows that her husband's cheating on her with the housemaid, and she just blurts out at breakfast or dinner one day, and she goes, so what was food like at prison, Millie? Just blurts it out in front of Andrew, and she's like, mic drop. What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? What? By the way, those are the exact words. You know, what was prison food like when you were in prison, Millie? And the internal monologue for Millie is literally, mic drop. In that context, what does that mean? And it's so funny that, like, some of this book is well written, and it makes sense, And then other parts of it like that are just cringe. And, you know, inconsistency, and I looked this up, inconsistency in writer capability is a good sign of plagiarism. And in this book, there are a lot of that, basically, of like, oh, this inner dialogue makes sense. This dialogue makes sense. Oh, this inner dialogue is extremely cringe and makes no sense contextually. Also, from behind closed doors, she sees everything. That doesn't mean anything in this book. She's never like magically seeing through keyholes or through walls or anything. She's just around and hears them yelling. That's not magical or insane or strange or a cool plot point. It's just she's living in the house and can hear when they scream at each other. Whoa. This all culminates though into one day, Nina accuses Millie of stealing the dresses that she so graciously gifted to her. And Andrew finally abruptly takes Millie's side and goes, "No, Nina, get the hell out of my house. I'm gonna be with this young, fertile, ugh, gross." Like, that's obviously a reason he's picking her. And you, my infertile wife, need to get out of my house. Bye, bye. After she leaves crying in a mess, because why wouldn't she be? This is traumatizing as fuck. He sleeps with Millie, gets mad at her for leaving books out, and locks her in her dungeon, not dungeon room. I'm not joking. That's exactly what happens. Now is when we get a flashback to Nina's point of view. And I think now is an important time to say this is exactly beat for beat the structure in the summaries of The Last Mrs. Parrish. This whole kind of third person, first person limited view of Millie's life in the house, then switch to the kind of suspicious, maybe bad wife to show that she's actually a victim, which, by the way, it shows that everything that happened in this book so far was orchestrated very devilishly by Nina to get Millie into this position to start basically dating her husband so that she could leave, because that room was used as her torture chamber. She would be put there whenever she messed up anything. Literally. If she let her roots grow out a little bit, she would be put in that room so that she would then have to pluck out 100 hairs fully intact from her scalp so that she would then be let go. The only reason she then didn't leave the house after all of this transgressed, she didn't leave because, one, immediately after the first time this happened, she is drugged by Andrew. So is her daughter. And then she is left to wake up to realize that her daughter is about to drown. Her daughter is drugged by Andrew. She is drugged by Andrew. She can barely get the water turned off in time before the police storm in, arrest her, and send her to a mental institution. And now, every time she gets sent to this room, she can't leave because then she'll get just sent back to the mental institute. And that's a huge mess. Then she orchestrates this all with Enzo. Important character? Not really. He's just another object for people to have sexual attraction to, and I kind of hate it. I don't know. He's just like he's around, big burly man to save the day, and then sleep with Nina specifically after she gets freed from her husband, because she orchestrates this all so that her husband will then think it's his idea to send Nina out of the house. And it's all so predictable, like entirely predictable. The entire time I'm reading this, I see it all coming. Part of that might just be that she's a bad writer and can't really build suspense in a way that is, you know, if you think about it for a second, you don't just immediately get what's going on. Like, I understood Andrew was the bad guy from the first scene he had. It was so fucking obvious. But it also might be a sign that she isn't writing this story. I don't know, and I'm not going to jump to a conclusion that she is a plagiarizer. There is a lot of proof that the housemaid was plagiarized, but there's a lot of proof that it isn't exactly plagiarized bar for bar too. Like, nobody has the right to a story structure, but it is strange that the whole, okay, wife is bad guy, husband is kind of good guy, victim, other characters introduced into the situation, sleeps with husband. Oh, turns out wife was actually the abused party and just trying to get free from the whole situation. We switch to her point of view halfway through the book to see her point of view. Okay, switch back to the other point of view that we were at the start of the book to resolve the story. That's a little, like, extremely plagiarized, right? And the fact that The Last Mrs. Parrish came out in 2017, The Housemaid came out in 2022. So, if any book's plagiarizing, it's obviously The Housemaid. The story, though, it culminates in Andrew locks Millie up in the room and makes her stack books on her stomach to basically atone for leaving books out. She does this eventually, And when he comes in, pepper sprays him in the face because Nina left pepper spray in the piss bucket, that very same piss bucket, not that long ago, so that Millie, being the ex-con who was actually put in prison for murder, she murdered a rapist. I mean, like, she's written terribly, but like her actions are great, you know? The reason she got fired from her job that put her in this situation is that she punched a guy in the face for repeatedly sexually assaulting her. So like, she has never once really been in the wrong in any of her situations. Not this one either, obviously. But still, her character is sometimes written very devilishly smart and other times written entirely idiotic for plot convenience. And I hate that shit. That's stupid. That's bad writing, dude. Get a grip, all right? Once she pepper sprays Andrew in the face, she locks him in the room and makes him repeat the task of stacking the books on his abdomen and his groin. You know, put pressure on the appendage, and then makes him pull out his own teeth. You know, at this point, she could just let him die if that's what she's gonna do. But like making him pull out his own teeth is a little crazy. I don't know, man. We switch in between Millie and Nina's point of view through this conclusion. And later, Nina, which is part of the epilogue, she gets interrogated by the police. The police find he's dead in the attic and has his teeth pulled out and a bruised groin. So probably murdered somehow. He definitely died of dehydration though. But it turns out that the Detective Connors, who shows up, drops a bombshell that I entirely saw coming, because how else is Nina gonna get out of this? Because she absolutely gets out of this. He goes, yeah, my daughter Kathy is actually his ex-fiance, Andrew's. Whoa, who could have seen that coming? Everything in this book was so predictable. Even at the end of the book, which by the way, Connors lets her go scot-free because he's like, yeah, I wonder why my daughter like moved away from everybody and became a recluse and was entirely very obviously abused. Well, it turns out it's because her ex-fiance was an abuser, and when he left her to be with another lady, he abused that lady and then abused another one and then got what came to him. So Detective Connors covers it all up very illegally, but albeit justly. Laws are not what is good. Morals are. And the morals there are pretty chill of like, yeah, this guy kind of deserved it. Let's just let them all go free. But at the funeral, saw this coming too. It's very obvious. Evelyn, the mother of Andrew, shows up, and throughout the story, she's been kind of like a kind of freaky mother, like a little bit. She drops the bombshell that she learned that Andrew very much was said to report to have been missing teeth. And instead of being like, damn, you killed my only son, get the hell out of here, she's like, I told him, you gotta brush your teeth or your teeth get pulled the fuck out, because that's what I did to him when he was a kid. I pulled his teeth out, his baby teeth. The other ones grew back, so it was okay. I told him he would get what's coming to him if he didn't brush his goddamn teeth, which is die. Sure, buddy. And that's the conclusion. Millie gets away scot-free and is given another job where she's supposed to take out a husband. At least that's what's implied. Nina gave Millie a job recommendation at another house where a friend of hers is being abused by her husband, and it's implied that Nina gave Millie this recommendation so that she would go and kill this woman's husband. Like, I get it, but why would you put Millie through another situation like that? Like, she got mentally messed up from being abused by Andrew, and it's like, okay, is this supposed to be like triumphant? Because it didn't feel like it. It felt like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That might just be me though, you know, if you want to become some badass husband murderer, if they're all terrible people, I guess, like, I don't know, maybe try and get them sent to prison instead. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. Okay, but now, yes, this book is probably at least a little plagiarized, because I looked it up. The Last Miss Parrish was pretty popular considering its genre, publishing status, and like the time it came out. Not compared to this, but like, and the thought process could be that Frida McFadden wrote this in very much inspired by the other book and didn't realize just how much she was plagiarizing the story. And that's like not forgivable, but it's like, oh, damn, that's really stupid of you. What the hell, man? It's very obvious that she either took heavy inspiration and didn't realize that she crossed a line that she shouldn't really be doing, or that she didn't know. Like, it's possible that she didn't know, but it's not really that possible because of how close the story beats are. Like, again, no author really has claim to a story structure. If you want to go third person, okay, this person's the bad guy, to different first person perspective showing that that person's actually victim, to last part of the story being a combination of the both and showing that like it's super much more complicated, even though you probably already get it because I already got that Andrew was the bad guy from like the first chapter, or not the first chapter. There's a lot of chapters, but like the first small section where he's introduced, like it's so obvious, dude, come on. Even if this book is not plagiarized and it's just an extreme coincidence, which doesn't really make sense to me personally, but you can have your own opinion, obviously. This book's not good. It's so mid, it's bad. Like the book is unoffensive, right? Like obviously there are 2 points where I was like, okay, If you explored this a little more, it would have been pretty bad. The fact that Andrew drugged a child, right? But that wasn't really delved into a lot at all. Like, Cecilia doesn't get a lot of reconciliation for what happened. She just gets to move away, right? Instead of him, like I know he gets his teeth pulled out and he gets dehydrated to death. Like, that's great. But, like, we don't really get to see it happen at all. So it's just like it's told to us. Not good storytelling, really. Show don't tell, baby. Show don't tell. And the fact that he died of dehydration and pulling his teeth out. Like, that's it. Those are the only points in the story where, like, it started to get a little creative, but it just didn't go anywhere with it. And I will say that everybody's character, besides Andrew, is extremely flimsy. It's never explained why Cecilia is so just temperamental and bad. Like, she would probably be more scared to act up and stuff, but instead she's just really terrible to Millie at the start, even though it's said later that if Cecilia misbehaves, her mother gets put in the attic, the dungeon room, but now Cecilia doesn't care when Millie's around. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Nina's character is extremely strange. Sometimes, again, she's extremely smart, like devilishly smart, and other times she's just so dumb, really dumb, like makes decisions that you're just like, but why? Okay, and there's no consequences for these dumb decisions. If there was, then it makes sense, but there isn't. They just don't make any sense. They're plot convenience decisions. I hate those. This book tells you every important plot point 3 times in a row because it's afraid you'll forget it because it's so meandering. Also, I have in my notes here, 1 second, the night when Millie and Andrew sleep together, when she wakes up the next morning to find the door locked, she realizes her phone, she left it downstairs. Then we do that whole gap where we see Nina's point of view, and we get back, and then it seems like our author has forgot that Millie remembered this, and she says that she actually plugged it in upstairs with her, and that it's not there anymore. What is it? Did she forget it downstairs, or did she plug it in and it get taken away? All right, that's just bad writing, okay? And also a big transgression I don't like, if you go back to, for instance, my Court of Thorns and Roses video, I hate when an author is not creative and uses different phrases for exact things. 3 times in the book for each of these, people are said to be walking down the stairs and it sounds like gunshots. You could say thunder. You could say an ominous presence appears down the stairs or something, instead of every time saying that they sound like gunshots. Just be creative, please. I don't read a book so I can have the same phrase repeated to me 3 times in a book, multiple times. For instance, another one is, their mouth became a thin line when they were, like, aggravated or something. I don't know, say something about their eyes or something. And also, every time somebody gets a little confused, their brow creases. Hey man, I get it. People are repetitive, but not every character is the same kind of repetitive, because all of these are about different characters. So what, they just don't have any personality with their expression? That doesn't make any sense. I would say that I understand why TikTok connected to this book. It is extremely understandable and feeds you everything like you're a baby. And I have a problem with that, okay? I hate the fact that books have been dumbed down. This book could have been cool and interesting and use the structure of a book the author likes, possibly The Last Mrs. Parrish, to build off that and make the story different while using the skeleton very legally to make a story interesting and push the bounds, right? I have this belief that books need to do one of 2 things to justify their existence. That's right, I'm getting really down to it. They need to push the envelope, or they need to further perfect an already existing skeleton, or an already existing genre, or style, or type of story. Now, when I say that, those are not strict structures that you need to follow. When I say push the envelope, that can mean in any direction, either in a more chill direction that is a little more mellowed out, or in a more crazy direction. This book doesn't push the envelope, nor does it build off anything to make it perfected. It just probably, I'm not saying that they absolutely did, but it's too close. They might have stolen an entire story and just made a mid-book out of it. That doesn't justify its existence for me, and overall, that means the book's not going to be over 2.5 stars. If this book is plagiarized, that makes it so much worse. Obviously, then it would be a 0 out of 10. But I'm going to rate it on the basis that this book might not be plagiarized. It might just be a unfaithful adaptation of something that they took a lot of inspiration from and didn't realize that they were being extremely plagiaristic, or on the minor chance it's a coincidence. It can always be a coincidence, right? I feel like people on the internet forget that. But I did find this Instagram post, I'll put it up on screen, of a bunch of people in the comments being like, oh yeah, this feels plagiarized to me. I've read both books. But I can't prove that these people read both books, nor can I prove that the person who posted it read both books. Just know that there are people all over the internet agreeing with this. Take that with a grain of salt. The internet is a mess. But if this book was not plagiarized, and if it was one of the 2 options of unfaithfully adapted or a coincidence, I'm gonna rate this book. I'm actually tempted to go down to a 1.5. My reasoning is that the repetition got to me and the fact that it's not pushing any envelope, right? The book is understandable, right? You have to always give a book credit for getting its message across. If this book isn't plagiarized, getting its message across is important, right? But the message was so easy to get across, man. Maybe that's why this book might have plagiarized that structure, is because it very easily conveys to you what's going on. But that doesn't mean you should slack on the actual good parts of the story, which are what you do with that structure, instead of just using that structure that you might have taken from another book to make something mellow and boring. The twist wasn't a twist, it was conveyed. The other minor twists were, forecasted to us in the beginning of the book for every single one, that when it happens, you're just like, oh yeah? The book is 50 pages too long, and overall, this book, to me, does not justify its existence. So I'm gonna go down to a 1.5 star. You know what? No. I've convinced myself even further to go down to 1.25 stars because this book might be plagiarized. It's so very obvious when you read just summaries that this might be plagiarized. And even if it's not, I think I'm going to stick with a 1.25 rating anyways. To me, that means it's barely above recommendable to people who are getting into reading. And also, it means bad writing, right? When it's that low on the rating scale, it means bad writing. And overall, I would never read this book again. I would hardly recommend it to anybody. If somebody was like, I want to get into a thriller genre, and I owned this book and they were staying around me for a couple days, I'd be like, you could read The Housemaid. It's not great, but it's palatable. Too palatable, maybe, And if you have to talk about a book like that, it's not that good. All right, so since I don't have my home computer, I will just like to thank, and I still only have one member. This is my only member. Thank you so much. All right, you're amazing. People like you are what's gonna make this channel, go, dude. And also, if you made it to the end of this video, you have to subscribe. You're obligated to subscribe. It's the law. Sorry. But now that we're at the end of the video, I would like to know what you think about this book if you've read it. If you've read both and you think it's plagiarized, please don't lie about that, but let us know in the comments. And if you're curious and you don't want to have the time to read both books, just read a summary of both books. It's so similar. It's strangely similar. And not everybody is going to come together to lie about this. And all of these were published before these allegations came out. So, I think it's kind of trustworthy. But do your own research instead of just taking my word for it, and let me know if you've read this book and what you think about it, how off base you think I am, or if you feel just vindicated by my stance. Because this book is just another TikTok slop book. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. And as always, go read a book. Go read. Get out of here and go read a book. Bye-bye.